Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. A nation can claim that its currency is worth any amount it wants relative to other currencies. Say, for example, a government could announce that its national currency is worth $10 USD per unit. On paper, this would be an official proclamation, perhaps published by the central bank or finance ministry. However, such a statement does not guarantee acceptance by the international financial community. The declaration of a high-value exchange rate alone doesn't ensure that other countries, foreign banks, international businesses, or financial markets will honor or recognize that valuation. True recognition and use of a currency at a particular exchange rate require more than a mere declaration. They demand trust, market stability, credibility, and the backing of sound economic fundamentals. For a currency to be globally recognized at a specific rate, the international community, comprising forex traders, importers, exporters, central banks, and multinational institutions, needs to agree on that valuation in practical, day-to-day use. Exchange rates are not only numerical representations of value, they reflect confidence, economic performance, monetary policy integrity, political stability, and supply-demand dynamics in the global market. You can't just print a rate into existence and expect it to function meaningfully without an entire infrastructure of transparency, convertibility, and legal recognition backing it up. Take, for instance, historical examples of currencies that were pegged at high rates but lacked international support. In such cases, nations tried to artificially raise the value of their money, but the result was often a black market discrepancy, where the actual, street-level rate diverged dramatically from the official rate. This typically happens when currency controls exist, preventing free exchange. The official rate might say 1 unit equals $10 USD, but if no one outside the country is willing to accept that exchange rate, and if international trading partners or currency exchanges refuse to transact at that level, then it remains a theoretical construct, not a functional reality. This is where the role of the central bank becomes central, no pun intended. The central bank, as the monetary authority of a country, is responsible for determining and managing the official exchange rate regime. This includes setting fixed or pegged rates, managing a currency basket, or, in some cases, intervening in the market to maintain certain currency levels. The central bank can control the currency's value under a managed or fixed exchange rate system by using tools such as foreign exchange reserves, monetary policy interventions, and capital controls. In these systems, the government essentially dictates the currency's value relative to others, but often must defend that rate with real resources like foreign currency reserves or gold. However, when a currency shifts from this model to a free-floating exchange rate the dynamics change entirely. In a free float, the value of the currency is no longer decided or defended by the central bank. Instead, it is determined by the forces of supply and demand in the open global market. This system relies on real-time decisions made by traders, investors, governments, and businesses based on their assessment of the country's economic health, political stability, trade balance, interest rates, and investor confidence. The value is ultimately determined by what someone is willing to pay. The same holds true for currencies. Iraq, for example, might one day claim that its dinar is worth $10 per unit. But if the international banking system, forex markets, and global trade partners aren't ready to agree with that valuation, if there are no mechanisms for free convertibility, if foreign central banks don't accept or hold the currency, if businesses won't transact in it, then the declared rate has no teeth. This distinction becomes critical when a country seeks entry into systems like the International Monetary Fund's Article 8 obligations, which require open. Moreover, even if a country fixes its currency and backs it with reserves, such a system is vulnerable to speculative attack if market participants believe the peg is unsustainable. In contrast, a freely floating currency may experience volatility but is less likely to face sudden devaluation crises because its value adjusts organically with market sentiment. In short, central banks can indeed dictate the exchange rate under certain regimes. They can enforce capital controls and defend artificial rates. But that approach is increasingly unsustainable in a world moving toward transparency, interoperability, and global capital flows. A transition to a market-based float signals a desire to compete on economic fundamentals, not administrative proclamations. Once that transition is made, it is no longer the central bank that sets the rate. It is the global market, with all its complexity, data-driven analysis, and financial interests. There is also a symbolic and psychological shift when this happens. When traders and investors know that a currency floats, they engage with it differently. They study the nation's economic performance. They speculate based on GDP trends, central bank independence, inflation data, and debt levels. Currency value becomes a barometer for how the world sees a country. This is both an opportunity and a risk. A strong, well-managed country can see its currency rise naturally. A poorly governed or unstable one may see its currency fall regardless of internal desires or declarations. That's why a transition to a free-floating currency is such a significant step for any nation. It represents not only a shift in technical monetary policy, but a philosophical pivot toward trust in the market, toward transparency, and toward accepting the judgment of international actors. For countries emerging from conflict, corruption, or isolation, making this leap involves not just financial reform, but institutional and political transformation as well. Furthermore, for such a country's new rate to be accepted by banks like HSBC, Citi, or JP Morgan Chase, or by forex platforms like Bloomberg and Reuters, it must be based on actual transaction history, openness, and the ability to buy and sell freely across borders. Otherwise, the rate remains academic, unutilized, or ignored. In the end, while a central bank can say their currency is worth $10 to the dollar, that value only becomes real if the global financial community agrees and demonstrates that agreement through actual trades and holdings. Market confidence, convertibility, transparency, and legal recognition are the final arbiters of a currency's value, not national pride or numerical declarations. When a central bank relinquishes the direct control of setting an exchange rate and shifts toward a free float, it is essentially saying, let the market decide what our currency is worth. That takes courage, preparation, and credibility. But it is the most honest and sustainable path toward global financial integration. Thanks for tuning into Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed and stay ready.